Yeah, it's called delegate and elevate.
Delegate and elevate.
So, no. So yeah, now you got me going. So
90 days is hard for me, Lyn.
It's like, a long time. That's a long time.
Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast, your go-to source for insights and inspiration to achieve ultimate success in your roofing business. I'm your host, Jim Lyn, the co-author of Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and the best-known roofer and the co-founder of Roofer Marketers. As part of the leadership team for the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance, I'm here to bring you the best from the industry. In each episode, I sit down with top industry leaders to dive into their strategies and valuable lessons to help you find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Check out the new website, roofingsuccesspodcast.com. If you want to take the conversation beyond what you're just listening to here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. We also have a new YouTube channel, Roofing Success YouTube channel, so go and subscribe there. And as always, like, follow, comment, leave us a review, shoot me a text message. My phone number's in the description. Today, you guys have heard me talk about EOS like on so many of these episodes that I've heard a couple of times I should get an affiliate commission on EOS, like just because of how many times I talk about EOS. And so a good friend of mine, Lyn Askin, I've known him for, many, many years now, is an EOS implementer. And I was like, let's really have a discussion about EOS. So Lyn Askin, man, good to have you on today.
It is so cool to be on your show, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So you have become an EOS implementer. Is there an official title? Is that the official title? What is it now?
Yeah, so I'm there are kind of three levels of EOS implementer. There's a professional EOS implementer, there's a certified EOS implementer, and there's expert EOS implementer. So that's the sort of the registered trademarks of those things. Yep. I'm a certified EOS implementer.
Awesome. So what does a certified EOS implementer do?
Jim, we implement the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Obviously, it's a system created by Gino Wickman, kind of focused and based. I guess he created the system first and wrote the book Traction to explain the process. But we basically help business owners sort of channel human capital into one shared vision. That's
awesome. So for anyone who does not know about EOS, the book Traction by Gino Wickman is a great place to start. There is, I think, for today's discussion, I want to talk about the EOS, or start with the EOS model. And so can you explain to people what the EOS model is?
Yeah, and I think maybe I can give you a little clarity on sort of what an EOS implementer does when it comes to the your leadership team. So I work with leadership teams. And I make your leadership team better at three things. And we say that's vision, traction, and healthy. By vision, what I mean is, we help you and your leadership team get 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there. By traction, I mean instilling discipline and accountability so that no matter where you look, you see people executing on that vision. And then healthy, of course, it just means making you and your leadership team a more cohesive, functional, fun-loving team that likes to work together. And what we find is, as the leadership team goes, so goes the rest of the company. And so we work with leadership teams to make them better at those things. And we do that in the, kind of in the framework of the EOS model. Now, the EOS model, probably the best way to kind of describe this is that, all of us entrepreneurs are kind of built the same way. We're used to dealing with 136 simultaneous issues, but to the extent that we can get you to strengthen just 6 key components of your business, those 136 simultaneous issues just tend to fall into place because they're really just symptoms of a real root cause. And so when we look at your business, we place your business in the center of it and we focus on 6 key components. And I'll walk you through this really quickly and I'll just give you the kind of rough sort of roundabout version of it. And if you want to dig into any of them in particular, we can do that. But we start with the vision component. Once again, this is about getting you and your entire team focused on where you're going and how you're going to get there. If we move over to the people component, this is simple. You can't achieve a great vision without great people. And then we move over to the data component. This is really about running your business on, real numbers, facts and figures, and not sort of subjective emotions that so often drive the decision making that we make in our companies. Now, when your vision component's clear and your people component's strong and your data component's strong, your business becomes transparent, and the obstacles and problems and issues and challenges start to pop up. And so we move on to the key component number 4, and that's the issues component. We make you guys really, really good at solving the issues as they arise in your company. Move on over to component number 5, and that's your process component. That's about getting your handful of core processes documented and followed by all. And then, of course, we move to the traction component. Now, the traction component kind of sits at the bottom of the model, and it's by design, because if you can't bring your vision down to the ground and execute it with discipline and accountability, when we say that vision without traction is hallucination.
That is very true. And I think as business owners, we hallucinate a lot. We really, we struggle with this early in our business in Roofer Marketers we just went. And we hoped that we were going in the right direction sometimes. We hoped that we had the process for it. We hoped that, and we just would keep going and, push down walls and jump over others and go around some. And, sometimes it hurt. And, and so as we implemented EOS in our business, I remember the first quarter, and it was like, this is crazy, man. Like we got more done. We got this thing moving forward very quickly. It felt different. And so I know in that, we kind of, there's a process to that, right? There's a process to getting this going in your business, implementing EOS in your business. I wanted to talk to you about that for people. People can self-implement, they can hire an implementer. There's different ways of doing it. We self-implemented, kind of with the help of our coaching group or mastermind group that we're in together. There was an EOS implementer that kind of did a group session for us, and that helped us to kind of focus on that. But to implement EOS properly, how does that start?
Yeah, I want to go back to your other point really quickly. And you talked about when you guys started your business, and you worked really hard. You had to keep breaking down walls. And I guess I kind of like to say that there's a couple different ways. Like as entrepreneurs, we start a business. We do something because we love it. We start building something, and then you got to figure out how to clone yourself. And if you want to scale, you just got to keep breaking through these ceilings. And you guys did a great job of that. And so I guess I like to say there's a couple different ways you can run your business. There's guesswork, there's hard work, and then of course there's frameworks. And EOS is really just a framework on how to run your business. And the process of implementing, I would say, if somebody was really interested in learning more about EOS, there's a couple ways to start. One, you got to read the book Traction. I think that's important. That'll give you a feel for it. And once you kind of read that and get a little understanding of it, then you maybe have to kind of make a decision. Are we going to try and do this on our own? Or are we going to bring in an expert that'll help us go a little further and a little faster? So one thing I also want to say is, like, if you're sort of the visionary of the company versus kind of the get it done kind of person, I think there's another great book that's a great fit for a lot of visionaries. It's called Get a Grip. I particularly like the audio version of that. It's a great story. It's the fable of EOS, and it's kind of a fictional company who's struggling and having challenges with team and growth and scale and vision and where they're actually headed. And they've got a difficult kind of control in the company, and they hire a professional implementer. And the story walks you through their focus day, through vision building day 1, through vision building day 2, and through their quarterlies. And so that's kind of where I want to start with the process. Clearly you can self-implement, but whatever you decide to do, I think it's really important that you schedule a 90-minute meeting with a professional implementer. That 90-minute meeting's free. It's like Oprah. You get a 90-minute meeting. You get a 90-minute. We're not going to say no. If you want to have a 90-minute meeting, book a call with me. Let's do it. I'm going to get you and your leadership team in a room. I'm going to learn about you. You're going to learn about me. I'm going to open up the EOS fire hose. I'm going to hit you with all of it, and then I'll walk you through what it's like to work with me. But I'll share with you and your listeners what that looks like right now. So if you were to hire a professional implementer, we start with what we call a focus day. Focus day is you, me, your leadership team. We get in a room. Session lasts 7 hours plus or minus an hour, and we're going to work on your business. We're going to get out of the weeds, out of the high cotton or whatever we're going to call it, and we're going to work kind of at a 30,000 foot view. We're going to be your board of directors for the day. And in that session, we're gonna build the foundation for you of EOS. We're gonna implement kind of some of the foundational tools. We're gonna build an accountability chart. We're gonna start putting the right people in the right seats and understand what your company needs to look like going forward. We're going to build your first set of rocks, and rock is basically your 90-day biggest business priorities. We're gonna teach the level 10 meeting, kind of the level 10 meeting and that agenda, and we're gonna take a first cut at your scorecard. And by first cut, I mean, it's going to take a little while to fall in love with your scorecard. And we're going to try and get you to 60, 70, 80% on focus day. And then we're going to let that sucker evolve over time until you're getting really great metrics and have a good pulse on your business. So that's the focus day. And then we kind of wrap that up. We send you out into your business for 30 days. And it's kind of spaced learning. Can't cram it all into one day because we got to go and do that in your business. We're going to come back together about 30 days later, and we're going to do vision building day one. Now, of course, we're going to go backwards. We're going to look at all the work we've done so far. We're going to work out the kinks, the bugs, the problems, the challenges, and then we're going to start working on the vision of your company. And we're going to build out your core values. We're going to build out your core focus, and we're going to build your core target. That's kind of about where we wrap up vision building day one, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And then we send you out in your business again for another 30 days. Then we come back for vision building day 2, 30 days later. Once again, reviewing all the work we've done so far, working out the kinks or bugs. And then we start making this real. We start digging in and we build out your marketing strategy. We build the 3-year picture because we really want to know what this company is going to look like just 3 years from now. If we can make that real crystal clear, the odds of it actually happening are just so much greater. If we can get everybody on the team to visualize what this company looks like, then we break it down even further and we get really close to the ground. We're at 1 year. And so we build our 1 year picture. Our 1 year plan. We set a set of goals for the year. And then we dig in and we set your next set of rocks. After 60 days, man, we've got this thing installed. You guys are humming along. You're using the system. You understand it well. You'll have mastered the focus day tools. And then we just get into this sort of, execution phase where I'm just running your quarterlies and your annuals as long as you need me. Eventually, you'll sort of graduate from the process. You won't need me anymore. That's really my job, Jim. I'm trying to get in. I want to teach you the system. I want to put it in place and help you get that discipline and accountability. Then I want to get the heck out of your way and let you run your business. Some people keep their implementers forever.
Yes.
Some are short, but the typical kind of process looks like a couple-year process to put this whole thing in place.
Yeah, and it's just getting the framework implemented. I want to go back to like some of the things that were very impactful, that I found very impactful along the way of implementing EOS in our business, and starting with that focus day and working on is the accountability chart. Like as small business owners, mid-sized business owners, what I loved about it, and you could go into detail and things like that about the accountability chart. We could throw around some things on that. One of the things that I thought was impactful was that we were writing it. It's not an org chart.
Correct.
It's an accountability chart. There's a very distinct difference there. It's an org chart is who is in your company. An accountability chart is who, to me, it seemed you could, probably go into more detail about this, but like to me, an accountability chart is who needs to be in your company or what roles need to be in your company, what seats are in your company or what seats need to be in your company. We had some fun looking at an accountability chart of where we were today. We had some fun looking at accountability charts around our 1 year, 3 year goals. Like, that it becomes a tool. instead of to me, an org chart wasn't a tool. It's just an is, where an accountability chart was a tool to what we needed to do in the future. So let's start with that accountability chart.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, you nailed it. This is not an org chart. And what makes it an accountability chart is that we build up this each your company, and what we're building, at least in the focus days, we're building what your company needs to look like roughly 6 to 12 months from now. And so it's a forward looking tool. It's the org chart is like what exists now. And I don't I guess that's helpful for, understanding who's in the company, but an accountability chart, the other thing that makes it different than an org chart is that we actually map out the roles and responsibilities for each seat in your company, and only one person can be responsible for that seat. And so, who owns the sales department? Who on the leadership team is going to, I don't know, for lack of a better term, take extreme ownership of sales? And what are the roles and responsibilities? What are the 5 or so things that are the most important that person needs to be focused on? And so, roles and responsibilities and accountability is really important here. And again, it's a forward-looking tool. So what often happens, we build this thing out with our leadership teams, and the visionary sees himself in 3 or 4 or 5 spots, and we start to understand that, because we think as visionaries, it's my job to do all this stuff. But when you map the thing out properly and you see, I'm a head of finance, and I'm a head of sales, I'm a head of marketing, and I'm sitting in the visionary spot, then we can start to predict and say, okay, that's not sustainable. I mean, we only have enough hours in the day. We've only got 100% of our available time. And looking at this thing, I might be a 50-hour-a-week person or 60-hour-a-week person or whatever, but at some point you're going to hit capacity. And so we've got to decide, how are we going to get you back to 100% capacity if you're 120, and we got to figure out which of these roles and responsibilities we are going to delegate first. And so it's a future-looking tool. It's a great tool, and it's a good way to understand the company that you want to be down the road versus who you are right now.
One of the things you just mentioned is, okay, so this gives you clarity on what is needed. It also gives you clarity on where you are, what seats you're in, and it can be surprising for some, not surprising for others, that their name ends up in a lot of these boxes. And that speaks to, what you're dealing with every day as the owner or visionary of this company, is like, man, it is a clear understanding now of why I'm overwhelmed with my business when you start to see that. There are also the fun thing with EOS that, to me, and I've mentioned a bunch of these tools on here before, one of these tools in that accountability chart, and because you started mentioning, what do we delegate next, right? There is is it a tool called, it's called Elevate and Delegate, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, it's called Delegate and Elevate.
Delegate and Elevate. So I had it backwards. Delegate and Elevate. This is one of my favorite things too, because again, I'm a framework person. Like, you give me a framework and I just go. To have to create these things and think about these things, like if you have to sit there and think, man, well, what do I hire for next? Right? Like, this is a tool to who to hire next. So delegate and elevate. Explain, delegate, and elevate for everyone.
Sure. So again, when you're looking at your accountability chart and you see yourself in the sales role, in the marketing role, the visionary role, in the finance role, whatever, the only way those roles are executed to 100% is if somebody's working on them 100% of the time. And so when you're working on multiple roles, what is it? You're not going to do sales, today, or what? So how are we going to do this? So delegate and elevate is a cool tool. It comes from the idea that you really should be working in your unique ability. Unique ability is like a Dan Sullivan term. But what we do is we have you kind of map out everything you touch during a week. What are all the things and tasks that you actually do? And you map those all out, and we drop them in a kind of Covey quadrant, Eisenhower matrix, whatever. It's a grid. There's 4 boxes. In that top left corner, we map out all of things that you're great at and that you love to do. Top right corner, we're going to put all the things that you're good at and you like to do. That bottom left corner, we're going to put all the things that you don't like to do, but you've been doing them a while, so you're good at it. And that bottom right corner, we're going to map out the things that you neither like to do nor you're good at. And when you take all of that items from the list of all the things you do in a regular week and you drop it in those 4 boxes, it's a little bit of a painful process emotionally, right? There's not always enough stuff up there in that top left. And the truth is most of us spend 60, 70% of our time working on that stuff on the bottom. And that's the stuff that we're not good at and we don't like doing. And so we give you a tool, and imagine having to invent a tool yourself to help your employees get more efficient, except we've done it already. And so you take this tool, run it with yourself, run it with your team. And now you got to take a look at those things in the bottom 2 boxes, and you got to start delegating that stuff. Like some of us can just take that whole bottom right quadrant and say, here, my assistant, take this stuff. Some of us got to be a little more strategic. And we're like, hey, which of this stuff can I delegate this quarter? What can I take off my plate this quarter? What do I have to systemize, document, teach, train that I can move off to somebody else? Do I have to make a hire? What is it? But all I know is I got to spend my lifetime working in my unique ability on the high dollar value items or the highest dollar value items for my particular seat and role.
And that's where clarity comes into play, right? So it's knowing what's next, knowing who's next. And I've heard it said that the best business owners, the best CEOs have a high level of self-awareness. And this is where that self-awareness comes into play to me. Like, this is where you get to express your self-awareness. Like, yeah, I hate to do that and I'm not good at it, but I just keep doing it because I haven't delegated it away to someone on the team. Then there are other things. Like if you're from a sales background in roofing and you want to, like, man, that's what you love to do. You love having sales conversations every day, leading a sales team. Okay, maybe that's not what you need to delegate right now, right? Like, if that's how did you put it? Yeah, I'd say core competency.
That might be your unique ability or your highest value activity. Or,
yeah.
You got to be working on your highest value activity. Every time, you touch, gosh, if you owned a roofing company and you were packing shingles up and down, that's not the best use of your time. I mean, that's a lower dollar value activity than building of the company and the vision of the company of the future.
That's right. And so, being out at job sites all the time, being a job site supervisor, then going and trying to sell the next, in the next few hours, then going and, we need to pick something up and from the supply house and bring it over here. Like, now there's so many things that you get to learn how to delegate, right? Or just know that you need to delegate. So that's the accountability chart for EOS. So deep dive for everyone. Accountability chart is to understand, who is needed in your business, what roles are needed in your business. And then you get to delegate and elevate based on what you enjoy doing, what your skill set is best suited for. So now let's move on and talk a little bit about what a rock is. You mentioned rocks. We got rocks. They're all over the place, right? But what is a rock?
Sure. Let me go back to the accountability chart for 1 second. There's one little thing that I want to bring up here, and I think it's important. My job as your implementer is to help you get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. Like, that's what we all want to do as business owners, right? And so when I think through that, one, we've got to know what point B looks like. That's step one, right? And we do that by creating your vision. Okay. Step two, we've got to know who's going to do the work. And that's where the accountability chart comes in. We got to know who is going to be responsible for the work that we need to do to get from point A to point B. Okay. Now, step three is really, we've got to continue to operate our business as we know it today. And we use a scorecard to help you do that. Step four is we've got to build the company that we've dreamed of. We got to build that company that's in our dreams. And that's where rocks come in. So rocks, what is a rock? So a rock, and then of course we got to have a system to hold each other accountable to actually getting the work done. And that's where the level 10 meeting comes in. So those are the kind of the 5 steps, and they map perfectly to EOS. And so let's talk about rocks. What the heck is a rock? So a rock, the term was really created by Stephen Covey, and it was popularized by Vern Harnish. But I guess Stephen Covey, basically, he did a demonstration where he took a cylinder. It was a glass cylinder, and it represented our available time. Next to that glass cylinder was a pile of rocks, which represented the most important things in our lives. And there was a pile of pebbles, which represented kind of our distractions and the other things. And then there was a pile of sand that represented everything else. Now, Jim, if you put those things in the cylinder in the wrong order, or like most of us do, and we throw that sand in there first and then stick the pebbles in, rocks don't fit. So if you take those rocks, if you do it the right way, and you put those rocks first, the most important things, the big things, the most important priorities for the quarter, if you put those in the glass cylinder first, and you put those pebbles in, the pebbles filter in around the rocks. You pour that sand in, that sand filters in, and it all fits, and you get the most stuff done. So a rock, by definition, is your 90-day biggest business priority.
As simple as that. And this is why I love it. Like, it's like, what is the most important thing that we need to get done right now to be a better organization, to be a better company? What is it? So now we know this, we have our North Star. And it's a short enough period of time that what was helpful for us, it's that short enough period of time, that 90-day cycle where it's like, we can get this done. It's not like we should really get that done. And in 5 years, that'll be great. It's like, this is the timeline, and we have a start date, an end date, and it's in sight. It's not something that we can push off too much. So that leads to kind of how do you get this rock accomplished?
Yeah, so it's been scientifically proven that we can only focus on something about 90 days before the wheels fall off. Right?
It's hard for me. It's hard for 90 days is hard for me, Lyn.
It's like, a long time. That's a long time, right? But that's about the max, right? If the rope starts to fray and things start to fall apart a little bit, and so we sit down with you and your leadership team, and we do a rock creating exercise, and we basically list out, here are the things that we think are the biggest business priorities for the next 90 days. And often we come up with a list. Sometimes it's 90 items long. And we look at that thing as like, God, that's overwhelming. So what do we have to do? Jim, we got to prioritize. And we make you prioritize. And I will let you have 3 to 7 company rocks. We're going to figure out what those are. And so we've got to get really, really good at predicting the items that are going to move us forward. Might be an acquisition, might be a project, might be a system we got to process, might be, process we have to create. Could be anything. It's your biggest business priority. And so we got to figure out what that is. And we work with you and your leadership team to create that set of rocks. Then we assign that rock. Each rock has to have an owner. So somebody who takes, extreme ownership. They're accountable for the rock, for getting it done, making sure it's pushed over the finish line. They don't have to do the rock necessarily, but they need to make sure that project gets done. And so we're going to build great leaders that are able to take projects and delegate and pull team together and figure out how to get these things done. It's got a due date. And then of course, we have to make sure that we have a way to hold people accountable over those 90 days because of, human nature, procrastination. We have this procrastination model that says, hey, if I got 90 days, or I think Parkinson's law, maybe I think it says, if you give me 90 days to do something, it's going to take me 90 days to get it done. Right. And so we want to make sure that we have some sort of meeting a pulse between the 90 days every week that we're looking and we're checking, hey, are you on track? Are you off track to get that rock done by the due date?
So in rocks, like one of the things that I think is what is most important, right? So how do you help people determine, or how would one think of, man, what is the thing that we should be focusing on? How do we get to that answer? Is it just the owner says, hey, these are the 5 things that you guys need to focus on, go? Like, or what is the process of determining what those 90-day most important things should be?
Well, I think what's important here, our first set of rocks that we set, hate to say this, they're kind of practice rocks, right? We got to get in the habit of creating a rock. I mean, we want to get them done, don't get me wrong, but we're in a lot of cases, we're putting out fires. We're just coming in, we're saying, hey, all this stuff's on fire. This is all the things that are broken. These are all the things we want to fix. And we're going to spend the first, quite frankly, between Focus Day and Vision Building Day 2, practicing, getting those things fixed, fixing those things. And by the time Vision Building Day 2 comes around, we will have set our 10-year target. We would have set a 3-year picture. We will have set a 1-year plan. And now our rocks have purpose. Now our rocks are designed to drive us closer to that 1-year goals, or the goals that we have, or the big, hairy, audacious goal that we have. And so that's how we determine our rocks. I mean, again, what's broken? What do we got to fix? That kind of happens in the very first couple of rocks, but eventually we transition to what moves us closer, to our North Star. What projects can we get done in the next 90 days that move us closer to our goals, to our 3-year picture, to our 1-year plan, and to our big, hairy, audacious goal that we have?
I like that. Like in the beginning, it's just, hey, like, let's fix some things. Let's see what we could get fixed. But then once we have a lot of the things fixed, now we can move on to some of the things that really are impactful. Fixing things is always impactful, but like and another thing I heard from you is it doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning. Sometimes we want perfection out of our businesses, but you'll never get it. You will never get it. There's always a problem.
We got to move from being, we got to move from being reactive, fires, problems, issues, to proactive, which is moving towards the future and growing our business. We got to build the business that we've dreamed of.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now we have rocks. We need to know the metrics, right? You talked about the metrics. Is that part of that? Like that's that early, kind of the early thing, and that ties really into the pulse of the meetings in EOS.
Sure. So metrics, I think we're talking about scorecard. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Just having a really good scorecard for our team. Yeah. So we're going to build a scorecard in our Focus Day. And that scorecard is designed to give you you got to be able to look at this scorecard and have a pulse on your business. So imagine yourself on a deserted island. You're there in your lounge chair. Maybe there's some other people on that, but your cabana boy, cabana girl, no judgment, whatever. They bring you over your frosty beverage and they hand you a sheet of paper. On that sheet of paper is your scorecard. You got to be able to look at that thing and know if your business is on track or off track. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to know. You got to be able to have a pulse of your business. You got to be able to look at, hey, is my sales team having a good week or bad week? Is my marketing team having a good week or bad week? Is my operations team having a good week or bad week? Are our employees happy? Are our customers happy? Or is finance having a good week or a bad week? But you got to be able, it's simple. And if you think of I don't know, the people overcomplicate this, but I want to describe it sort of like a dashboard in your car. When you get in your car and you put your key in the ignition, you could just get a few simple keys to know if you can drive this thing safely, right? You can see how many miles are on the car. If you got enough gas to get you to your destination. You can see if your tires are inflated properly. And you can see if the check engine light's on, right? That's what we're trying to build with a scorecard. It's simple. Are we on track or is the check engine light on? And if that check engine light is on in any one of those departments, we drop that thing down to what we call our issues list, and we tackle that in a level 10 meeting.
Yeah. In the level 10 meeting, we didn't talk about that yet, but a level 10 meeting is your weekly meeting cadence that you're doing. So every week you have a level 10 meeting. So this thing flows, right? You have your rocks. Now you have your issues. You have, your scorecard, and you're looking at your scorecard and you're going, oh, there's some issues here. What's going on? Maybe our leads are down. Maybe our sales conversion rate isn't where we want it to be. Maybe our time to build is not where we want it to be. Maybe all of a sudden you're like, man, what's going on here? How come these jobs aren't getting built? How come, maybe you're not collecting in the right amount of time, which would really impact the business, right? Like you need to be making so all of these simple things that you're like, all right, I see, yep, we're looking good, we're not looking good. And then if something is not looking good, all right, now we dig in more. That's how now you're listing out issues and discussing issues with your team and finding solutions, right? How do you is that's like the pebbles and sand? Is that what would put in the analogy? Would like the issues be the pebbles and sand?
Not exactly, I
Okay.
guess. I mean, issues are really, when Gino created EOS, he created it because he saw a difference in two companies. Two types of companies, not two specific companies, but two types of companies. There's the 95% of us that were, working our tails off. Owners and leadership teams are working really hard, but kind of spinning our wheels there a little bit, right? And then there's those other 5% whose owners and leadership teams are also working their tails off because that's what we do. We're entrepreneurs. That's normal. Some of our best days are those days when we're just lots of things happen, and the worst days are the ones where we're sitting around going, what's going on? But the difference between the two was that 5% of those companies, they actually solve their issues on a regular basis, and they get to move on to new issues because the issues never stop, Jim. And you know that they just keep coming. They keep coming, but we're going to move on to a different set of issues. And we're going to make progress every single week. We're going to get to work on better problems or bigger problems or different problems. Because the 95%ers, they're dealing with the same issues over and over and over again. And we call that like the worst case of business deja vu ever.
Yeah. That's Groundhog Day, right? Like that's just like, oh, we got to do this again. This is the same thing that we've dealt with yesterday,
Yeah, the reason that happens, Jim, is because when we solve issues, we're solving them superficially. We're putting a Band-Aid on it. We're solving a symptom and not the root cause. And so in as part of a level 10 meeting, we do something called the IDS or issue solving track. And we teach you to really dig down into the issue to ask yourself, hey, is that, what's written on the issues list is never the real issue. That's a symptom. What's causing that thing to happen? Let's solve it at the roots. We don't ever have to deal with this again. We're going to set this thing out. We're going to knock it down. We're going to make it go away forever for the long-term greater good of the company. And so that's, we're kind of bouncing around a little bit here, but
we're bouncing around. It's all right.
Yeah. I want to make sure that you understand that we're going to teach you guys to be really, really good at solving the problems that you have as they arise. Because if you take those issues and you just kind of wrap them up with duct tape and twine and shove them in the corner, eventually your entire company is going to be held together by duct tape and twine, and none of us want that.
Yeah. And Gino and I have something in common because that just sounds exactly like how this podcast came to be, right? Like I'm doing sales for roofer marketers and business development, and I'm talking to roofing contractors all day long. And some of them I'm like, my goodness, you are crushing it. This is absolutely amazing what you're doing. And then I talked to some other folks and like, I don't know how you even consider what you're doing a business. And so I wanted those contractors who were struggling or getting started to hear from those contractors who were like really, really executing well and really successful. It's like that. Maybe that's why I resonate with EOS so much, right? It's like there's this framework there that just it really does help you organize the chaos of the day-to-day, right? And move on to other things. I want to move on a little bit into like what you guys do in the vision building days, and mainly around core values. I find like this was another exercise that we really, really attached to, and I've had lots of conversations about core values, and just in the past few episodes, we've had multiple conversations about core values and building your team and attracting the right people. But this is where you have to define your core values. How does one define the core values of their business?
Well, the truth is, we so core values. Let me define core values as EOS states core values.
Okay.
So our core values are an essential set of guiding principles that define who we are as a company. So this is who we are. This is who our team is. This is what we believe. This is what we think. And I don't mean integrity. I don't mean honesty. I don't like those are just so phony. They're just if you got to say trust me, that's not the kind of core values I'm talking about. I'm talking about help first. I'm talking about do the right thing. I'm talking about like those sort of core values that exemplify who we are. And Jim, we use our core values in EOS to hire, to fire, to review, to reward, and recognize our employees. They become, oh gosh. So Dr. Thomas Gordon, he created this thing called parenting effectiveness training, and I'll summarize it really quickly. But he said, to be a great parent, you got to do these three things that, not so great parents don't do. And number one is to have a handful of rules. Number two is to repeat yourself often. And number three is if you're going to have a handful of rules and you repeat yourself often, but you yourself don't follow those rules, you're going to have chaos. So you got to be consistent. And so when we talk about our core values are our handful of rules about what it means to be a great employee at whether it's Roofing Success Podcast or Joe's Roofer or whatever. This is an essential set of guiding principles that it tells your employees this is what we expect from you. It's one of the things that we can hold people accountable to. And so we get you together. We build your core values together as a team. Now, this isn't like the boss coming and saying, this is who we are. We actually do a core values exercise where we pull the core values from your team. We figure out who we are. We don't create aspirational core values. We don't create accidental core values. We create the core values that exist in this company and say, this is us.
How do you do that? That's the key, right? Because it's such it's so easy to just say integrity and good, you know what I mean? Like it's so easy just to list these things. And it's so easy for an owner to just say these things. How do you get to that level that is impactful in those core values? You mentioned bringing the team into it. I'll let you loose here. And say, ready?
No,
go.
No. So yeah, now you got me going. So how exactly do we get the core values of the team? Our core values exist. Like we don't have to make up new ones. They are us. And so your team already has core values. We just need to sort of bring them together and define them. So we do a core values exercise where we basically ask you like, who on your team is like a rock star? Who on your team is somebody that if you could clone them, you could have 100 of them, you could take over the world. Okay. And you're going to list 3 or 4 people. Everybody's going to list 2 or 3 people. And then I'm going to ask you, why did you list them? Describe them to me. What adjectives would you associate with them? And then we start building a rough list of these qualities that we admire in our company. And we just work through that. We prioritize, we kill some, we keep some, we combine some, and we come up. It's almost magic. I've had clients tell me like, Lyn, I didn't know where you're going with this, but I think you like tricked us into our core value. They just appear, and it's kind of magic.
Other things I've heard of it, like to kind of get your mind going and thinking about this is like, think about on the other side, not just the person that you want 100 more of, but that person that you want no more of. Right? Like there's the opposite of, and then the opposite of that is your core value, right? If you have if that makes sense, like there's ways to approach this and it's very unique. But what I like what you said is the core values of a company are already there. Yeah, they're already there.
Exist.
You just have to bring them to the surface and define them and then be able to express them and then be able to, hire around that, fire around that, reward people, discipline people. Like there's a whole, it gives you a baseline now to to do that. Here's what was really
Gives
impactful for me from a core value perspective. It came in the form of the people analyzer.
yes.
So the people analyzer is another one of my favorite things of EOS, because the people analyzer is it's essentially your, like, and you have your quarterly, meeting with your team member on their, how they're doing. And but instead of just going, man, Jim's doing a good job. He's fine. He's getting his work done. That's great. Yep, Jim, you're doing well. It's, are you exuding our core values? Are you kind of in between, or are you kind of
Not at all.
showing something against our core values, right? So in your actions on a day-to-day basis. So not just, are you getting your work done, right? Like are you doing it in a way that is in alignment with the core values of the company? That's my favorite thing, because it creates clarity in who are the right people for your company after the fact. Because hiring is guessing and firing is knowing. Not that you want to fire people, but man, you got to be able to measure this. And to me, that's the people analyzer. So first, when you have your team puts together, you really define your core values. Now you get to measure against them. So that's my take, and I'm sure you can expand on that. But I love that one. I love the people analyzer.
Yeah, so we have a tool called the People Analyzer, and it gives you, again, a framework to have great conversations with your employees. So imagine Jim, you and I in a quarterly conversation, and I'm like, man, Jim, there's just something about you I don't like. I don't know what it is, but I mean, that's a weird conversation to have, right? But what if I came in and said, hey, Jim, here's where I think here's a couple of places in the company I think you're just really doing great. But on this particular core value of help first, look, I know you have the core value, Jim. I'm just not seeing it. And so, maybe it's there. I want to help you get better at this. And so here's what it would look like to me. Here's a couple of examples where I think maybe you fell a little short of that core value. And here's what I think it would look like for you to actually exhibit that core value. And now we can have a great conversation around what it means to be a great employee here. Of course, you got to get your work done. Of course, you got to get it. You got to want it. You got to have capacity to do the job. But when you have somebody in your team that doesn't fit your core values, they stand out and they poison you. And we all know the one. We know that sales guy that's crushing it, but he's a giant, whatever. I don't want to say the words, but the one. I mean, and you can't. He just eats away at you in some ways that you don't even understand. You don't have to settle for that. You can have people that live our core values, that are people that we want to be around, people that we love, people that we want around us, and they can get the job done. So the people analyzer is just one of many tools in the EOS toolbox that'll help you, build and grow your business.
Another thing, I just had this conversation. I was having this conversation on another podcast about sales leadership and building great sales teams. And we were talking about rewarding and and defining what a championship looks like. And I think that it's similar around that. Like, we all have to be going in the same direction. And what I love about companies who really have embraced EOS, Job Nimbus, where I've been at, and roofer marketers, and I know lots of great roofing companies that have implemented EOS successfully. And it's like there's this, you get to express, it helps you express when someone is doing well, but in relation to that core value. So, we had a thing, we use Slack a lot for internal messaging, and we used an add-on to Slack called Karma. And you could give people karma points, and karma points would, you had to write what they did well, or what they did that made you want to, kind of talk about them. And then you had to tie that to a core value. So it had to be tied to a core value. And just those simple things, it was like you're reinforcing. It's a reinforcement of that. At Jobnimus, we used a tool called Motivosity, did the same thing. If you have a team in the field, it's a little bit different, but maybe on your weekly sales meeting, you can have a core value of the week kind of thing. Like people could nominate people to, hey, this person, this quarter or this month or this week, had exuded this core value. Who exuded this core value the most this month, this quarter, this week? Like it helps to reward people, but it's not a reward on the surface level stuff. That's what I love about it.
There's a quote by Napoleon. I'm just gonna paraphrase it because the original quote's a little bit different, but he basically said that no amount of money will cause a man to lay down his life, but he will gladly do so for a bit of yellow ribbon. And the concept behind that is people love to be rewarded and recognized in front of their peers. Yeah. And so remember when I talked about the great parenting lesson, I said, you got to have a handful of rules. The second thing I said was you got to repeat yourself often. And so if you've got a handful of rules, which are our core values, to get our team to learn them, to understand them, to live them, we've got to repeat them often. Mm-hmm. And we do that by reviewing and recognizing and rewarding with them. And so when in the level 10 meeting, there's a section called customer employee headlines. We use that for employee shout outs. And I'd say, I want to give Jim just a shout out this week for living our core value of help first. He jumped on a call with me. He walked me through this thing. And so now we're using our core values to review and reward and recognize because we want our team to learn these handful of rules and exemplify them often. So we've got to repeat ourselves often with our core values. People don't learn core values from a poster. They don't learn it from a mug. They learn it from using them day to day in your business.
Yeah. So I think this is awesome. We've talked about a lot, and I talked about the kind of the key components of EOS and how it kind of how the framework comes together. We talked about how this gets implemented in your business. So you have a focus day. You're talking about your accountability charts, your rocks, your meeting pulse, your metrics, your scorecards. You're moving into your vision building day 1 and day 2, where you're just redefining these things. You're defining your core values. You're kind of figuring out the rhythm. You're starting to play with this stuff. It's starting to really kind of, oh yeah, this is how we can use this. This is how we can use that. We're learning how to use the issues list. And now we get up and we're in our day to day, right? It becomes a part of and a rhythm of your business. And so you're doing quarterly planning and you're focusing on the bigger on your rocks. You're continuing to solve issues. How do you continue to keep the momentum going? And I know you guys, quarter to quarter do that. How does a company continue to keep that momentum going and kind of keep the bumpers up, stay within the confines of the EOS framework?
Yeah, I think it's really important, to follow the meeting pulse of EOS, and the meeting pulse of EOS is really, it starts with the 2-day annual. And if you go backwards from that, there's 3 quarterlies a year and a 2-day annual. And so what I said before was after about 90 days, like we got to come back together and we got to get back on the same page. So in a quarterly, what we do is we look back upon your last quarter. We're going to look at it. We're going to, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Did we get our rocks done? How did we do in predicting our measurables and our profit and our revenue? Are we getting closer to our goals? So we're going to look back and see how we did. We're going to review our vision again and make sure we're all still on the same page, because sometimes we're not. We got to get back on the same path here. And then we're going to set a new set of rocks and priorities for the next 90 days. So the team has you just get refreshed and you get pumped up again because you're back together again. And now you got a new set of goals. And we, whether we crushed our last quarter or not, we're going to come out of that. That's behind us. We can't just rest on our laurels. We got to continue to move forward. And I think humans need progress. Humans need a system to get better. And this system will allow your team to do that. How do you, if you went to a sporting event and there was no scoreboard, or no score, what are you watching even? Like, who's winning? How do you know? And so this system, this is a perfect little, obviously I've drank all the EOS Kool-Aid and I love this thing because quite frankly, it changed my own life. And I just wanted to be able to help other people do it. So we're going to get together quarterly, again, review the last quarter, and then create a new plan for the next quarter. Now, and when we get to an annual, obviously we got to get some quarters in, and then we do annual planning, and then we do a 1 day full of like team building exercises, and we build culture because that's really important. Most businesses spend so much time on being smart, so little time on being healthy, and so we got to make sure the smart stuff is the stuff that you do day to day, and we how we do this and how we roof and what materials we use and how that's smart. Healthy is culture. Healthy is being open and honest, having great conversations and sometimes difficult conversations, knowing that I can say the things I need to say. I'm not going to get fired. We're all on the same page here. We're all in the same boat. We're all rowing in the same direction. The problems are not between us. They're in front of us. So let's just tackle that issue and knock it out. Issues don't have feelings. Let's just move forward. And so, there's a really nice rhythm here that brings us back together every 90 days and gets us back on the same page and gets us motivated and pumped for the next quarter.
Yeah, that rhythm is really impactful. And so I encourage everyone to check this out, man. Like for your business, look into EOS, see if it can solve that problem for you. If you're within the chaos, right? Of course, I've talked about many of these things on the podcast before. So hopefully this was helpful for you to have someone who does this every day with Lyn doing this. So, man, I appreciate your time today, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.